The smell of death. Unable to contain their anguish, these residents of Kabati in Naivasha can only contain their curiosity. Shortly after 2 p.m, a group of people, believed to be men, women and children, seek refuge in this house in an attempt to escape the violence that has gripped Naivasha town. It is a fatal mistake. All of them are burnt to death, beyond recognition. Unconfirmed reports put that number at 15, but it could be higher. Outside, there are bodies all over. This man, stoned to death as he tried to flee a mob. At the local cemetery, another victim. He had fled through the gravesite with a mob behind him. He did not get very far, but here, no one is apologetic. Very indicative of what this country has become. Again, signs that the government is not in control of the situation. We follow the military for almost 2 miles as they clear the road into Naivasha town. Minutes later, the roadblocks are back on. Even military presence does not scare them. Frustrated, the military leave. In the town's estates, an overwhelmed police force evacuate the targeted. Some too young to know what is going on. All over town, the youth are gathered in groups, watching their perceived enemy leave. But as word gets out that Naivasha is burning, hundreds of youth erect roadblocks along the Nairobi-Naivasha road. Here, if you're the wrong tribe, you're dead. Behind the scenes, leaders are calling for an end to the violence.
Let us stop the mayhem we have seen. The innocent are dying, properties are lost.
Whoever is facilitating that, we urge them to stop it in the interest of peace and the loss of life that we have seen in this town.
Whether that works or not remains to be seen.
In the province generally we have arrested close to 400 people so far for the last one month.
The ground is alight and burning. Robert Nagela, MTV, Naivasha.
A mixture of anxiety and anticipation hangs over Kenya as the International Criminal Court opens the secret Waki envelope containing names of suspected masterminds of post-election violence. Our senior Zangiwi wishes the suspects behind the turmoil get prosecuted for their acts.
This is Rose Wangoi, a citizen journalist from Kenya, reporting on Mr. Blog. ICC Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo is not expected to release the names after opening the envelope. Majority of leaders have already kicked off calls for the immediate resignation of cabinet ministers who may have been implicated. Key political personalities and businessmen in the country are among those who are suspected of funding violence that pushed the country to the brink of collapse. And as the country awaits Moreno's move, Kenyans can only wish that the suspects will be prosecuted as soon as their names are released, regardless of their status or position in the government.
If you want your voice to be heard by millions, let Instablog be your choice. You can contact us at cj@instablogs.com.
The opening of the famed Waki envelope in The Hague was some sort of anticlimax. It had been anticipated that the names of those included in that list would have been made public. Ocampo is instead playing his cards close to his chest. That list will remain secret, at least for now. The ICC prosecutor also received 6 boxes containing documents and supporting materials compiled by the Waki Commission. Ocampo confirms that the Waki Commission did indeed provide the names of a number of individuals and justifications for investigations. The secret list and the contents of the boxes are now stored in a secure vault where they will remain until the ICC's investigations are complete and a decision on whether to investigate individuals in the list or not is taken. The prosecutor, however, sounded a stern warning to the country that no impunity will be tolerated. Sentiments echoed by Lands Minister James Orengo in Mombasa.
ukiwacha bila kutoa adabu, ataendelea. Hata viongozi namna hiyo.
But in Chemelil, Agriculture Minister William Ruto was still maintaining that The Hague is not the way to go. The ICC prosecutor says that only Kenya will ensure that such episodes witnessed in the country in the aftermath of the disputed 2007 presidential poll results are not repeated. Brenda Mulinya, NTV, Nairobi.
The big announcement is slated for 5 p.m. local time. On the list will be 6 names of Kenyans who supposedly bear the greatest responsibility for the 2008 post-election violence. The ICC Chief Prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, will finally make public the names of the suspects who he will ask the ICC judges to indict.
There are 2 different cases, each involving 3 individuals who have to face justice. They had to go to The Hague.
The event of Wednesday afternoon will be a culmination of a protracted process that included that close to 2-1 ruling by the ICC judges that, quote, crimes against humanity have been committed on Kenyan territory. Last year in November, the ICC assigned the Kenyan case to 3 pre-trial Chamber 2 judges, Ekaterina Trendofilova, who's a Bulgarian, Hans-Peter Kohl, who's German, and Kuno Tafser of Italy. In March this year, Justice Ekaterina Trendofilova, a Bulgarian, and Kuno Tafser, an Italian, felt there were reasonable basis to believe crimes against humanity were committed. But Justice Hans-Peter Kohl, a German, differed and held that the crimes committed did not qualify as crimes against humanity.
There are no doubts that massive crimes were committed in Kenya. The issue is who is responsible here. Someone is responsible.
Luis Moreno Ocampo has since the beginning of the processes visited Kenya twice, pledging on both occasions to nail suspects of the 2008 post-election violence. The much-dreaded Ocampo list was first spoken of when former mediator Kofi Annan handed a sealed envelope, supposedly containing names of suspects to the ICC. So, who are the 6? That's the question on every Kenyan lips.
It was during his address at the ongoing conference to assess Kenya's progress in the reform agenda that the ICC Chief Prosecutor made his most elaborate revelation of the ICC's work on the Kenyan situation.
We are ready to present our cases to the judges of the International Criminal Court in the next 2 weeks. Before December 17, we'll file before pre-trial chamber number 3 of the International Criminal Court 2 written applications of around 80 pages each.
According to Moreno Ocampo, Kenyans will know the names of the 6 suspects facing charges for crimes against humanity in 2 weeks' time. This is when he submits an application detailing the facts and evidence he has gathered against the suspects before the ICC pre-trial judges. Moreno Ocampo will also be seeking summons for the suspects to present themselves before the court at The Hague. The pre-trial chamber is expected to decide on the prosecutor's application early next year. The chamber can approve or reject the charges against the 6 Kenyans or authorize the prosecutor to amend the charges. Should Moreno Ocampo's application be approved, the 6 suspects will be expected to present themselves at The Hague to make an initial appearance before the judges. There may be a reprieve of sorts for the suspects, as Moreno Ocampo has pointed out that he will not be seeking arrest warrants against them.
If the individuals identified agree to appear voluntarily and the judges accept it, the persons may remain free during the trial.
The 4th stage in the roadmap comprises public hearings expected to be held either late next year or early 2012. It is after this stage that the judges will review the evidence adduced so far, after which they will either confirm the charges and allow Moreno Ocampo to begin the trial of the 6. On the other hand, the judges may amend the charges or dismiss the case. Moreno Ocampo has expressed optimism that he will get the nod to take the cases to trial. despite earlier failing to convince one of the three judges there was need for an investigation. The trial could either result in a guilty verdict, which could see the suspects handed jail terms, or acquitted.
Madam President,
the ICC chief prosecutor is concerned at reports of intimidation and attempts at bribing potential witnesses.
I want to be clear. Under the Rome Statute, my office has jurisdiction to prosecute those people for obstructing justice. I hereby put them on notice.
Suspended Higher Education Minister William Ruto, who attended today's session of the conference, however rubbished Moreno Ocampo's undisclosed case, claiming it was based on rumors and falsehoods.
And if his evidence is based on the people we know, then Mr. Ocampo and his hatchet man, Mr. Omar Hassan, and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, which is on the highest bidder list, all of them will amount to a fraud.
Some individuals have also claimed to be witnesses and to have been induced to give a false statement. I like to clarify that. They are not my witnesses. We collected new evidence, new testimonies, new videos, new documents. We are not going to discuss our evidence in the media.
The ICC prosecutor further defended the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, arguing that the ICC had audited both its reports and its activities, and was confident that the Commission's investigations and handling of witnesses was professional and above board. Nitundebu, KTN Newsnight.
The ICC prosecutor strode into the hall at 2 p.m. for the much-awaited announcement and went straight to unmask the people he accuses of organizing and financing the violence that rocked the country in the aftermath of a bitterly contested presidential election in 2007.
William Ruto and Henry Kosgi, leaders of the Orange Democratic Party movement, began preparing a criminal plan to attack those identified as supporters of the Party of National Unity, in particular in the area of Rift Valley. Joshua Sang played a crucial part on this. He's a journalist, and he was involved in the planning of this operation, collecting supporters and also using the radio messages to pass code messages.
In his evidence, he is alleging that the three suspects coordinated a series of actors and institutions to establish a network, using it to implement an organizational policy to commit crimes. He further explained how they are believed to have executed the attacks.
Thousands of members of this network began to attack different places on 30 and 31 of December. They attacked Turbo Town, the greater Eldoret area, and Nandi Hills Town. They approached each location from all directions, very well coordinated. They had transport, they have weapons provided by the coordinators, and they start to burn homes, to kill people, and systematically force displace these people from their homes.
And next, he detailed how suspects from the PNU side and the government are believed to have orchestrated the crimes he is accusing them of committing.
Mr. Kenyatta's role was to facilitate the activities of the Mungiki, and Mr. Mudaura and Ali's role was to let them to commit the crimes. Mr. Ali was the head of the police in Kenya in those days.
The ICC prosecutor claims that they used the police and the outlawed Mungiki sect to commit atrocities.
The implement was to make an agreement with the Mungiki and other groups and let them to attack the civilians.
Ocampo says he found no evidence against President Mwai Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
We are not focusing political responsibilities. You can, of course, this was crimes committed by members of the parties against other members of the party because elections, and then there are many political debates. It's not my business.
He has already issued tough conditions against any attempts to interfere with investigations. And after Ocampo's revelation, you will now have to wait for the verdict of the judges, probably early next year, on whether they agree with his request for summons to be issued against the suspects to appear voluntarily before the court. And in Kenya, focus is now on the reactions after the naming of the suspects, who for now are still innocent. From the ICC headquarters, I'm Alex Chamwada.
In this issue of the ICC in Focus, we are talking about the history of trial proceedings in the case against William Samoei Ruto and Joshua Arap Sang, which is scheduled to start on 10th September 2013 at the International Criminal Court.
The trial of Mr. William Samoei Ruto and Mr. Joshua Arap Sang, the first trial related to the situation in Kenya at the International Criminal Court, is set to start on the 10th of September 2013 in The Hague. In June 2005, the Republic of Kenya became one of the 122 countries that have signed and ratified the Rome Statute, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court.
Kenya is the first case where an investigation was opened on the basis of the prosecution's own propriemotor powers, authorized by the judges of the International Criminal Court. The prosecutor intervened following consultation with Kenyan leaders and agreement that impunity was not an option following the post-election violence.
Despite several attempts, the Kenyan Parliament did not manage to pass the legislation required to establish a special tribunal. To date, the government of Kenya has not demonstrated to the ICC judges that it is actually investigating or prosecuting the three accused for crimes within the court's jurisdiction. Pre-trial Chamber 2 judges granted the prosecutor's request to open an investigation in Kenya in March 2010 for crimes against humanity committed between the 1st of June 2002 and the 26th of November 2009.
All rise. International Criminal Court is now in session.
Your Honor, my name is William Samoei Arap Ruto.
Henry Kibrono Koskei.
My name is Joshua Kirwa Arap Sang.
On the request of the prosecutor, Pre-Trial Chamber 2 judges, Judge Ekaterina Trandafilova, Presiding Judge, Judge Hans-Peter Cowell, and Judge Kuno Tafusa, summoned William Samoei Ruto, Joshua Arap Sang, and Henry Kiprono Koskei to appear before the court on the 7th of April 2011. The confirmation of charges hearing was held in the first week of September 2011. From the 1st to the 8th of September, the prosecutor and the defence gave opening statements, presented evidence including live witnesses, written witness statements, videos, maps and transcripts to the judges, and gave closing arguments. Legal representatives of victims, representing 327 participating victims, were authorised to present opening and closing statements and to examine witnesses. In January 2013, the judges decided to confirm the charges against Mr. Ruto and Mr. Sang, and declined to confirm the charges against Mr. Koskei.
With respect to the crimes charged, and based on the evidence placed before it, the Chamber found that the prosecutor has established substantial grounds to believe that the crimes against humanity of murder, deportation, or forcible transfer and persecution were committed. these crimes resulted in the death of hundreds and the displacement of thousands of civilians from Turbo Town, the Greater Eldoret area, Kapsabet Town, and Nandi Hills.
For the purpose of the trial, the ICC presidency constituted a trial chamber consisting of presiding judge Chile Eboe Osuji and judges Olga Herrera Cabucia and Robert Fremer. This chamber will decide to convict or acquit the accused at the end of the trial.
It will change anything in the political scenario. I think those who have declared their interest will continue. And like I'm saying, that is the main reason why I'm saying what we need in this country is just peace, coexistence, and all of these are processes which we just need to follow due process, and they will eventually come to an end one way or another. So there's no reason for panic, there's no reason for alarm. Kenyans should just continue with the business of developing and building their country.
Uhuru was among several cabinet ministers named in the Kenya National Human Rights Commission report over the post-election violence. The High Court blocked efforts to have his name expunged from the report. Uhuru has always shied away from talks about the ICC activities in the country until an interview he gave on the sidelines of an IMF and World Bank meeting in the US Capitol. The finance minister says any potential ICC warrant of arrest does not concern him. He says, and I quote, "Personally, I think once due process has taken place, the truth eventually will come through and people will get to know what the situation was." End quote. Uhuru noted that Kenya has proved that it stands by its domestic and international commitments. Uhuru's sentiments comes amid fresh debate over the impending ICC probe, with both PNU and ODM legislators engaging in a sort of premature blame game. Rashid Ronald, NTV.
There is a possibility for the parties or the participants to ask the judges to postpone specific deadlines if there are deadlines that are set. But that can be done only by the parties, so by the prosecution or by the defense, or eventually if the victims put to the judges specific requirements, and then the judges may order to variate a deadline or a time that they had specified for the opening of the trial or for another step of the proceedings. But as I said, that is a judicial decision that can be presented only by the parties that are in the proceedings, and the judges will decide on it depending on what are the real justifications that are behind it.
So collecting 2 million signatures will not make a difference?
As I said, the request for postponement of any deadline can be presented only by the parties that are in the proceedings and not by external parties that are not present before the judges.
And under what circumstances will the judges grant them time to defer the cases?
As I said, it depends on what are the justifications. Sometimes a case can be postponed because protective measures needs to be implemented for witnesses. Sometimes it's postponed because the deadline for the disclosure of evidence was too tight and one of the parties cannot deal with it in this specific deadline. So there is different reasons, but it's for the judges to decide on it.
International Criminal Court is now in session. L'audience de la Cour pénale internationale est ouverte.
Please be seated.
My name is Uhuru Kenyatta, born 26 October 1961, and I am currently the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of the Republic of Kenya.
To, on behalf of the Chamber,
is behind me as well.
Satisfy the threshold of Article 61.
What we've endeavoured to show this court is that we have produced evidence that rises above the level of gossip, rumour and people just saying bad things against others. Men who've done good deeds be defamed and slandered. And you have had put before you live evidence. This has not been the words of a lawyer. We've deliberately avoided that.
Just to remind you about the jurisdiction of the court regarding false testimony. So, court officer, would you help Mr. Kenyatta?
Yes, Madam President. Please repeat after me. I solemnly declare.
I solemnly declare.
That I will speak the truth.
That I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenyatta.
We're starting to get the hardware in place. And really what we're offering is what we're saying now is that what we need to do is to look at the software component, to see how the average Kenyan citizen can begin to take advantage of this major capital investment that has been made over the last 10 years, to begin to benefit individual lives at the county level. And that's really what it's the human resource aspect that the Jubilee government really wants to focus on, because we're endowed with it. Previously, we didn't have the necessary infrastructure to back it up. Now we do, and we want to take full advantage of it.
When I last spoke to you, you intimated that you are under a lot of pressure. Your family was also quite under a lot of pressure because you are facing this whole International Criminal Court trial. Now, if you become president, you will have the responsibility of a whole country. You have a trial to face very soon, and you have to take care of your family. How can you reassure Kenyans that you will be productive enough, that you will be in the best state of mind to make decisions?
That does not disturb me at all, because yes, I did intimate to you that it is indeed quite a bit of pressure, dealing with that particular situation. But at the same time, we're very clear as to what we need to do for this country to move forward. And what I'm doing is not just for myself, it's actually for this whole nation to be able, first and foremost, to heal and to move forward, in order for us to be able to ensure that this kind of scenario never occurs in Kenya again, and no other individual has to go through what I have gone through. And that gives me a lot of strength. That doesn't mean that the toll has not been heavy on myself and on my family.
Does it bother you at all what the Western countries are saying, Europe is saying, that they will have essential contact with you? And even if you don't cooperate with the ICC, possible sanctions?
That doesn't apply, ma'am, because we have never had one state ever indicated that we're not willing to comply with the International Criminal Court, if for nothing else, to ensure that our good names are cleared. So it's not a big thing. Like I'm saying, it's not a question of cooperating because you're president or not. It's a question of cooperating because we have to ensure that we clear our names in the eyes of the Kenyan people, in the eyes of the international community, and prove just how unfounded those allegations that were made against us are. That is that, and you need to understand it from that particular point of view. None other.
They are saying ICC cases will not stop them.
Mutula, who is vying for the Makueni senatorial seat on a Wiper Democratic Party ticket, fired yet another salvo at Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, saying the two should never have been allowed to vie for presidency and deputy presidency respectively until they are cleared by ICC.
The moment they are elected to the president of Kenya, and all of us, born and unborn, will be answerable to the ICC.
Mutula also took issue with the Attorney General for refusing to freeze assets belonging to the suspects as demanded by ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda.
I was embarrassed to see the Attorney General saying he will not freeze assets. This is Kenya, and that's why we have a coalition for reforms and democracy to ensure that nobody is above the law.
The AG has reportedly written to ICC saying under Kenyan law, he could not possibly freeze the assets until the suspects are found guilty. Uhuru, Ruto, and former head of civil service Francis Mudhaura
and radio broadcaster Joshua Arap Sang are accused of planning and funding the 2007 post-election violence, which claimed the lives of over 1,300 Kenyans. Richard Chacha, NTV.
The politics of a power vacuum in case President Kenyatta and his deputy are away in The Hague dominated the public engagement by the two leaders, one in Naivasha, where they closed IDP camps, and the other in Iten during the homecoming party for Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. It's here that the head of state broke his silence and told those waiting to benefit from a power vacuum to forget about it, and that the government will continue running smoothly even in their absence.
Msiwekwe hofu na mtu yeyote. Msiambiwe ya kwamba sasa watu wanaenda kule, serikali itaendelea. Hakuna serikali ambayo inaanguka hapa. Kama walikuwa wanafikiria hii ndio kadi ile walikuwa wameficha, ati sasa ndio wapate nafasi yao ya kuzunguka huko wakidanganya watu na mareferendum sijui na nini, sahau, kazi itaendelea. Serikali iko imara.
CORD has been on the offensive, questioning how the two will run the government while attending trials at The Hague. A similar campaign was waged by CORD during the election campaigns, where Jubilee said they can even govern the country via Skype.
This nation is not Ruto. If they are going on trial at The Hague, Kenya must determine how we are going to be governed when they are away.
Usidanganywe na mambo ya referendum. Waliambiwa kuna urithi. We are telling them that William Ruto is alive. Nobody, and Uhuru Kenyatta is alive. Nobody under the constitution can inherit their leadership position given to them by the people of Kenya.
Mambo ya ICC, taifa la Kenya limekataa. Na tumetangazia dunia tukiwa Iten Stadium siku ya leo ya kwamba ingawa hiyo kesi ambazo ziko huko zitaendelea, Kenya imeamua kutoka sasa tutajiondoa katika mkataba wa Roma.
The head of state said he was confident they will battle their case and get an acquittal. He cited his peace campaigns across the country as a focal point on how Kenya has regained stability compared to the 2007-2008 poll aftermath.
Mimi nawaambia hivi, wasifikirie ya kwamba tunaogopa. Tunajua ya kwamba sisi hatuna hatia, hatuna laama. Tutajitetea na ukweli utajitokeza na aibu itakuwa kwao, na Wakenya ndio watashinda tukienda mbele.
Tunawauliza muombe sisi na muombe taifa letu la Kenya, kwa sababu tunaamini Mungu aliye hai atahakikisha ya kwamba waongo wote watapata aibu, na Mungu na ukweli tutafaulu.
In a tentative calendar released by ICC, both the trials of the president and his deputy fall on the same dates, 12th November to 13th December. Analysts say if the court cannot adjust its calendar to avoid a power vacuum at home, then it would amount to contempt against Kenya's sovereignty. According to analysts, the Attorney General can write to the court or the Security Council, stating Kenya's dilemma.
The International Criminal Court has a responsibility to ensure that they schedule the hearings in such a way as to allow at least one of the two to be in the country at all times. I would further go on to say that if the International Criminal Court is unable to do its scheduling with this in mind, then it would amount to some form of contempt of Kenya's sovereignty. And I think we'd have to discuss and debate what should be a reaction to such a course of events.
Though the Constitution does not anticipate the absence of the two leaders at the same time, analysts say the power of the presidency still remains even in his absence. President Kenyatta's lawyer, Stephen K., submitted before the court yesterday that the president's trial should be delayed because of new evidence and the responsibilities he holds. Given there are no legal implications over the two leaders' absence, political pundits believe the court's intention to have the two leaders stand trial at the same time amounts to humiliation. Apul Kamau, K24 Weekend Report.
Yangu ni kuomba hiyo amani ambaye tuko naye tuendelee naye. Na niuseme hivi, na niseme bila kuogopa kwa sababu ndio ukweli, na ukweli hufichiki. Huwezi ficha ukweli. Tumezunguka Kenya hii tukihubiri amani na umoja. Kweli ya uongo? Tukihubiri amani, si ndio? Sasa wakati tunahubiri amani, nataka niwaulize, mliniona mimi nikizunguka nikihubiri amani? Miaka hiyo yote 5. Mliona Mheshimiwa William Ruto akizunguka akihubiri amani? Alikuwa anahubiri kuja kuchochea, si ni kurudisha na kuweka watu pamoja? Kuna mzungu mliona akitembea hapa akisema tuweke amani? Hii pesa ambaye tunatumia ya kuhakikisha, si ni pesa ya Wakenya? Kuna mtu ametuletea? Si Wakenya wenyewe ndio wamejiletea amani katika taifa lao? Lakini kuna wengine ambao wanafikiria ya kwamba wako na amani zaidi kushinda ile sisi kama Wakenya tunaweza kujiletea. Mimi nawaambia hivi, wasifikirie ya kwamba tunaogopa. Tunajua ya kwamba sisi hatuna hatia, hatuna laama. Tutajitetea na ukweli utajitokeza na aibu itakuwa kwao, na Wakenya ndio watashinda tukienda mbele. Yangu ni kuwauliza, msiwekwe hofu na mtu yeyote. Msiambiwe ya kwamba sasa watu wanaenda kule, serikali itaendelea. Hakuna serikali ambaye inaanguka hapa. Kama walikuwa wanafikiria hii ndio kadi ile walikuwa wameficha, ati sasa ndio wapate nafasi yao ya kuzunguka huko wakidanganya watu na mareferendum sijui na nini, sahau. Kazi itaendelea. Serikali iko imara. Tunaelewana? Serikali iko imara.
The cheering that greeted the president's remarks on the crimes against humanity cases that he and his deputy face at The Hague. It was the first time since his election that he was addressing himself to the International Criminal Court at a public rally in Ruiru. Underlined the word must in his tacit remarks.
We must be allowed to conduct our business, and we have been willing from day one to cooperate, and we are still willing, but do not make it difficult for us to run the affairs of an independent sovereign nation called Kenya.
A day later, analysts got busy scrutinizing the president's remarks.
I think the statement was unfortunate. I think it was in the political heat of Ruiru. I would not want to say that he's setting a stage for confrontation.
The biggest quarrel seems to have come from the court's schedule, which has since been reviewed somewhat. The likelihood of the president and his deputy appearing at the same time seemingly annoyed the president.
Wakitaka tuendelee kufanya kazi na sisi tuko tayari kufanya kazi. Wajue ya kwamba Ruto akiwa huko, Uhuru amekalia kiti hapa.
It is a very dicey situation to be in. Because ordinarily you do not give conditions to court.
Ordinarily, the ICC is supposed to be blind to the status of a suspect. Hence the court's quandary on what to do after a challenge to its decision to allow the deputy president to attend only some sittings led to a subsequent suspension of that decision. What the president seems to be telling the ICC is that the country will cooperate, but terms and conditions apply.
It did not come out very well, that statement in itself. But it does raise what I was talking about, the problem of obligations, personal obligations and national obligations. But clearly there is need to consider the national interest.
The president's position during the presidential debate was that the Hague cases were a personal issue. That seems to have changed according to Macharia, with the realization that this is no longer a hypothetical situation.
The way it currently is, many Kenyans are faced with personal challenges, and I take this as a personal challenge.
And I speak in my capacity as president of this republic. Yes.
And then he says, now I'm speaking as president. He stops being an accused. And as president, he has to protect the interest of the country. So the country is saying the conditions are this and this and this. It's a very tricky situation to be in.
Analysts expect the political rhetoric to die down once the trial commences, with parties to the Kenya cases getting down to the details of the matter before the trial chambers of the ICC in The Hague. Moraya Kariuki, NTV.
Upon your children, we are proud to be children of. In the name of Jesus we say, but yes to the freedom and running of this nation.
Sitaki kuongea siasa kwa sababu leo ni siku ya maombi, lakini kwa wale ambao wamesahau, juzi Wakenya wamenipatia kazi ingine ya kuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Kwa hivyo mimi sasa nataka kuongea kama rais, sio kama Uhuru na sio siasa, ni kama rais. Na nataka niseme hivi, kuna wengine ambao wanapiga mdomo juu ya hii mambo ya VAT. Mimi nataka niwakumbushe ya kwamba huo mswada uliletwa wakati walikuwa ndani ya serikali. Sisi ni kumalizia, tunamalizia. Wasikuje sasa kuleta siasa ndani ya mambo haya. Tunaelewana wenzangu? Lakini wakati nasema hivyo, naambia pia wafanyabiashara wale ambao wanaendelea kuongeza bei wakisema ya kwamba wanaongeza bei kwa sababu ya ushuru, wajue ya kwamba serikali ina macho. Wale ambao wanaongeza bei na pesa wanaweka kwa mfuko, wajue ya kwamba tunawaangalia na tutachukua hatua juu ya hawa, kwa sababu tunataka haki ifanyike. Watu wasichukue nafasi hii kuweka bei zao juu wakilaumu wakisema ni mambo ya kodi. Lazima kodi tulipe, lakini tunataka kuhakikisha usawa. Tunaelewana wenzangu? Jambo la pili ningependa kutaja, kuna wale ambao wanaota wakilala na wakiongea. Hata wakiongea ni kama kuota, wanaota. Wanaota wakifikiria ya kwamba ati kwa sababu Uhuru wako na case na Ruto wako na case, sasa ndio watapata nafasi ya kufanya maneno yale wanafikiria watafanya. Nataka mimi niwaambie mchana ya kwamba case itaendelea na serikali iko imara. Tunaelewana? Iko imara. Hakuna vacuum ambayo iko, hakuna. Na niwaambie hivi kwa sababu sasa siongei kama mshtakiwa, mimi naongea kama rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Nikisema sisi tumekubali ya kwamba tutafanya kazi pamoja na hiyo koti. Tunaelewana? Lakini lazima pia wajue na waheshimu ya kwamba sisi pia tuko na katiba. Tunaelewana? Haiwezekani iwe Ruto yuko nje na mimi niko nje. Wakitaka tufanye, na nasema mimi naongea kama rais wa Kenya. Tunasikilizana? Wakitaka tuendelee kufanya kazi na sisi tuko tayari kufanya kazi. Wajue ya kwamba Ruto akiwa huko, Uhuru amekalia kiti hapa. Tunaelewana? 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 Uhuru akiwa kule, Ruto yuko hapa. Tunaelewana? Hiyo wajue mchana, wasiseme mimi niko na nini au nini. Lakini they will not make it impossible for a sovereign nation to conduct its business. We must be allowed to conduct our business. And we have been willing from day one to cooperate, and we are still willing. But do not make it difficult for us to run the affairs of an independent sovereign nation called Kenya. And I want to be very clear on that. And I speak in my capacity as president of this republic. Yes. Na ndio tusifikirie ya kwamba kuna vacuum. Hakuna. Yes. I will take on my responsibilities and answer to the case. But I will not also shirk my responsibilities that I have been given by the people of this republic.
Asante wananchi, tuwe watulivu, tusimame.
Just a day before the commencement of ICC trials against Deputy President William Ruto, divine intervention was being sought in Ruiru by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy. Both are facing crimes against humanity charges at the Hague-based court. But the president, whose case begins in November, once again dispelled fears that their cases at the ICC will cause leadership crisis in the country.
Nataka mimi niwaambie mchana ya kwamba kesi itaendelea na serikali iko imara. Tunaelewana? Iko imara. Hakuna vacuum ambayo iko, hakuna.
Ruto is said to fly out to The Hague Monday morning ahead of his appearance in court on Tuesday to answer to charges of crimes against humanity. As per the ICC trial schedule, the president and his deputy could both be confined in the Netherlands-based court between the 11th and the 13th of November.
Tutafanya kazi pamoja na hiyo koti. Tumeelewana? Lakini lazima pia wajue na waheshimu ya kwamba sisi pia tuko na katiba. Tunaelewana? Haiwezekani iwe Ruto yuko nje na mimi niko nje.
Hakuna chochote kitakachofanyika Kenya hii. Hakuna mtu atapitia mlango wa nyuma apate uongozi katika Kenya hii. Uongozi wa Kenya ni ule wa wananchi. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Tunaelewana?
Akitaka tuendelee kufanya kazi na sisi tuko tayari kufanya kazi. Wajue ya kwamba Ruto akiwa huko, Uhuru amekalia kiti hapa. Tunaelewana? 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 Uhuru akiwa kule, Ruto yuko hapa.
Even as the president and his deputy planned to cooperate with the Hague-based court, ICC warned that it could issue arrest warrants against the two if they fail to cooperate. Enoch Sikolia, NTV.
Now, according to a UK newspaper, The Telegraph, Western diplomats are now preparing a UN Security Council resolution seeking to suspend the case against President Kenyatta at the ICC. A diplomatic shuttle to influence the UN Council by the previous regime failed to yield the desired result. Will it work this time round? KTN's Wilson Buru has the details.
The African Union on Saturday issued a stern ultimatum to the International Criminal Court to stop the case against President Uhuru Kenyatta, and the effects of that demand seem to have had an effect already. Western diplomats now want to compel the UN Security Council to make a decision and have the case deferred in a bid to avoid a damaging standoff between the court and African states. But exactly how would this work? One would need to understand how the UN Security Council works and its relationship with the ICC. The Security Council is one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations and is charged with the maintenance of international peace and security. The Council works very closely with the International Criminal Court since its main goal is keeping peace.
The United Nations Security Council can actually refer matters to the ICC. Under Article 16 of the Rome Statute to the United Nations, ICC, you will find the UN Security Council being mandated to defer cases that are before the ICC.
The Council comprises of 15 members, 10 non-permanent and 5 permanent. The permanent members are China, France, the United Kingdom, the Russian Federation, and the United States. These states hold key powers that may either pass or reject any application brought before the Council. These are called veto powers. The resolution by the Western diplomats and the AU may be seen as a light at the end of the tunnel for President Uhuru Kenyatta, but this could not be further from the truth. Such a resolution still has to get the vote of 9 members of the Council, but this is still not the end of the road.
The tricky part comes when one of the veto powers, who are 5 actually, the permanent members, decides to sanction that or to vote against such a resolution. The resolution would automatically then not pass. But when all of them then vote for that, and then we get the 9 members supporting such a resolution, then it would sail through.
Another hurdle for President Uhuru and the AU in having the case deferred is the issue of whether such an application warrants being heard by the Council.
AU resolution may actually reach the Security Council, but before it is debated or deliberated upon and a resolution passed on it, it may fail to meet the test of being a Chapter 7 motion and therefore worthy to be deliberated by the UN Security Council.
It is understood that European officials have sought to adopt measures to ensure President Uhuru is not forced to leave the country in the wake of the Westgate incident. A source also noted that he is not an indicted figure who is defying the court like Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir. Whether the case is deferred for a year is a matter that remains to be seen. Wilson Buru, KTN.
A very good Monday evening to you. It is the 14th day of October 2013, 2 years since the Kenya Defense Forces entered Somalia to fight the Al-Shabaab. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime.
Indeed, and just like we have been doing the previous week, this evening we will have a sign language interpreter allow him to introduce himself. And I believe he's trying to say, my name is William Silla, and you're watching KTN Prime. William, thank you so much. We have brought William in to make sure that our brothers and sisters who cannot hear us will be able to be part of this bulletin. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's move on. Okay?
Well, now, the ICC cases against President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are no longer personal.
Well, that's the government's new position on the Hague trials that have introduced a whole new twist to the quest for the truth and justice over the post-election violence.
A poised Amina Mohammed stood before the press Monday afternoon. Her first address after the African Union unanimously resolved that President Uhuru Kenyatta should skip his upcoming trial at the International Criminal Court.
We were extremely humbled and were very grateful to have been witness to an Africa that was rising.
But her composure could not shield her from the myriad of questions that followed concerning the president's trial, which kicks off in November. One resounding question would take the country down memory lane during the pre-election presidential debate when Uhuru Kenyatta had to convince Kenyans of his ability to rule the country while clearing his name at The Hague.
I take this as a personal challenge. I'm sure that my colleagues here also have other challenges. But those challenges do not prevent one from continuing with their day-to-day job. If the people of Kenya do decide to vote for me as their president, I will be able to handle the issue of clearing my name, while at the same time ensuring that the business of government continues.
The new stand by the Foreign Affairs Secretary portrays that position as having taken a back seat.
The minute that he was elected into office, they stopped being personal problems, they first became national problems, and eventually regional problems.
Asked if the president will heed the AU's call to skip his trial.
Are we going to ignore the decision? How can we? How can we? We are part and parcel of the AU and have been since 1963.
But this new wave of Pan-Africanism has been questioned across the continent.
The famine that is ravaging the continent, the corruption and impunity that is also ravaging the continent. So there are many more issues that are of a more serious Pan-Africanist dimension than just the indictment, which tends to affect one or two, three countries, important as those countries may be.
It wasn't the only issue in the discussion. We discussed Lampedusa, for instance, and the many Africans that lost their lives in sea. We discussed issues that related to the Westgate attack. We discussed issues that relate to integration. We elected a new commissioner for peace and security for the continent.
Whether or not the president will choose to attend his trial, Kenyans will be observing the political and diplomatic toll that the Kenyan cases will have on the African continent. Asha Mwilu, KTN.
The 6 judges made their signature trod down the hallowed white corridors of the Supreme Court, carrying with them a 2-page white paper that held together the hopes and breaths of the many who had gathered at the Supreme Court for the final verdict. And it was short and swift.
After extensive deliberations, we are happy to announce the Supreme Court has reached a unanimous decision.
Read out by Chief Justice Willy Mutunga as those present in the courtroom hang on to his every word, that after sifting through the oral arguments and the mounds of paperwork presented by the lawyers, the court had upheld the election of Uhuru Kenyatta as Kenya's 4th president. In a summary of the verdict, Mutunga said that the elections had indeed been carried out in compliance with the Constitution and were free, fair and transparent.
It is the decision of the court that the said elections were indeed conducted in compliance with the Constitution and the law. As to whether the 3rd and 4th respondents were validly elected and declared as President-elect and Deputy President-elect of the Republic of Kenya respectively by the 2nd respondent in the presidential elections held on 4th March 2013, it is the decision of the court that the 3rd and 4th respondents were validly elected.
In a landmark judgment, the judges said they had thrown out the petition by CORD and AFRICOG challenging the election of Uhuru Kenyatta and seeking to have the presidential election set aside. The judges also felt that the rejected votes should not have been included in the final tally of the presidential vote. All petitions before the court were thrown out and the parties were ordered to meet their own costs of the petition.
Petition number 5 of the consolidated petitions is hereby dismissed. Petition number 4 of the consolidated petitions is hereby dismissed. As to petition number 3 of the consolidated petitions, the prayer by the petitioners seeking a declaration of recomputation of percentages by the 2nd respondent is declined, as the court has no jurisdiction.
The 6-judge bench is expected to deliver the full verdict in 2 weeks, complete with the grounds on which they based their decision. In the meantime, the stage is set for the handover to the new leadership.
It has been 2 weeks of anxiety as Kenyans awaited the ruling of the Supreme Court, which was made in just under 5 minutes, ending the stalemate that was the outcome of the March 4th presidential vote and clearing the way for the swearing-in of Kenya's 4th president. Sheila Sindeo, NTV, in Nairobi.
Kenya will continue, the government will continue, the economy will continue. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it will have any impact whatsoever. Kenya continues, and we have proved that we are a mature country able to handle our issues. I've always told you, gentlemen, when I'm at the Treasury, I work for the government. You meet me outside, I'll address myself to those issues. When the statements come, we will respond to them accordingly depending on what they say. So as of now, we continue with work. So then we'll wait. My friend, in fact, you shouldn't even be here. You should be running to watch your TV or whatever it is. You know you're a strange character. So you just... Why don't you dash to your radio or TV quickly, and then we talk later?